Linh-chan and Dimi-chan play games. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Oh, hey. So that's what a shield is for.
Yeah, surfing. Down grass. My shield, the good shield that we got. Hey, come back here. Oh, he's gonna stop.
Stab.
Nothing like a good stab.
And
on an interesting topic Thursday. What a great way to stab your way into the week.
Into the week. You're stabbing at us.
I'm stabbing our way into the week.
What are we talking about today?
I don't know. You should tell us.
Thursday.
I obviously fail at this.
Yeah.
So I think Lynn does a much better job.
Well, that's because I'm not playing the game.
I got a beetle. And I think I can get fireflies.
Well, you gotta let me talk.
Yeah. And Lynn is going to talk about Ikebana.
Ikebana.
Which, for those that don't know.
For those that don't know. I'm repeating after you.
Oh. It's flower arrangement. Japanese flower arrangement.
It's Japanese flower arrangement. The end.
The end.
Just kidding. So, this style of flower arrangement has been around for, I would say, a few hundred years now, or probably more than that. But it started, it's been around for about 7 centuries now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was first introduced to Japan by a Chinese scholar that came over. And at first, that whole idea of flower arrangement is it's display in a form of like an offering at an altar towards like whoever you're worshiping. And then over time, the priest started to, make it his own style and created this style called the Ikebana, or like a Ikebana form of style. And it's not just a bunch of random flowers put together. And there are 3 style of Ikebana. The oldest version, it's called the Rika. The Rika.
Rika.
Uh-huh. And it's not the oldest form is called Rika, and then the simplest version of the Rika is called I forgot. It's called the Shoka. So the simplest form.
And what does Rika and Shoka mean?
I don't know.
It's just terms?
Yeah, they're just terms.
Okay.
But when it comes to like flower arrangement, it follows a certain style or a certain requirement.
Mm-hmm.
For the Rika and the Shoka style, you use more of like a very tall but narrow vase, and mostly the flowers are arranged vertically, so standing up. And there are lots of criteria as to how to do it. So I don't know much about it. I've only just started to do research on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting because it's not just a matter of like, oh, these flowers are pretty, let's just arrange them. It's all about presentation. It's about the kind of message you want to carry across, and you can't just put any flowers together. It has to like follow a certain theme as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's important how the flowers like are arranged.
Yeah, it's important.
It's not just to make it pretty.
Yeah, and the purpose is not really to make it pretty. It's decoration, but it's to carry a message, and it's also most of the time it's a way for people to like pretty much. It's a form of meditation, I would say, in a way. Looking at it, like people would spend like 40 years on this.
Hey, that's my raft.
It's
floating away. So it's really a school of teaching in a way.
It is a school of teaching, and and normally just acquiring the basic skills, it takes like 3 to 5 years to acquire the skills. So, and it's really interesting. Um, so yeah, they use a certain style of vase, a certain kind of flowers, and then one example that I found is or two examples that I found. It's based on the shoka style, and the arrangement are formed around 3 lines, meaning like it has to have 3 things, like it can use 3 types of plants, 3 types of flower, but it has to be 3. You can't use more than that. And you can incorporate in like leaves with flowers, but it has to be 3.
Interesting.
And also, in the balance, you have to balance the height and the length of these 3 lines, meaning these 3 material that you use. So you can't just be of any shape or any size. It has to be like strategically a certain height of a certain thing in respect to each other as well.
Okay.
And so so an example of that is like the vase. You have to if starting off, the flower is based on the height of the vase. So whatever the vase is, the tallest line of displaying flowers or plant has to be 3 times the height of the vase. And then the second longest line has to be double the height of the vase. And the shortest line is equal to the height of the vase.
Interesting.
And also it has to have, and depending on a certain style and how strictly you want to follow the style, some you have to have the flowers be at a certain angle to each other as well. Like for the longest line or the tallest item, it has to be like I think 10 degrees off from the center. And then the second highest has to be like around 45 degrees off of the center. And then so you build up from that. And it's really interesting how much effort it's put into just putting flowers in a vase.
Okay. No, it's quite involved.
It's very involved.
No wonder whenever you hear like someone say like, oh yeah, they do flower arrangements or Ikebana specifically, not just flower arrangements.
Yeah, it's not just.
But they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Like, do any of those angles have specific meanings?
I think not entirely. Like in general, it's the presentation of that style. However, it's also flower arrangement. It's also up to the artist to display or to try to convey a meaning or a message to the audience by slightly rearranging things to how they want it to be perceived. So one example I found it's really interesting is, or it's really cool that there's a lot of thought into it, is that it's following the shoka flower arrangement, and in the middle, the tallest line, they had a bunch of like really tall leaves, and then the second tallest is a twig with some very minuscule flowers on it. And the flower, technically, if you follow the style religiously, then all the style have to pretty much be vertical, straight up. However, this artist decided to take the second longest line and curve the branch slightly so that it bends outward towards the left side of the vase. And then the third shortest line is and so he put 2 flowers in the middle, and it's vertical to the first tallest line. And this is taking into the consideration of the presence of the sun. And this arrangement, it's showing that the flower is reaching towards the sun, and it's doing it on purpose, and it's to symbolize how plants spring up from the earth in a way, and that when it grows towards the warmth and the brightness of the sun. So therefore, the artist strategically placed the flower at an angle, going away from that middle vertical line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting.
Impressive.
Okay.
And just in general, and like, what was it in particular that got you interested in this? Because you started looking up a lot of information really quickly, I noticed.
Oh yeah. Well, I was recently I started quilling, and it's a form of paper craft where you roll up strips of paper
Mm-hmm.
and using glue to piece it together, and using just paper and glue you can form really very nice dimensional patterns or flowers, and recently I've been learning that, and I thought, oh, what would be a great idea is to incorporate maybe because Japanese are known for their flower arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking up on Google, like, has anybody incorporated quilling into flower arrangement, And there's really nobody. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe it would be really cool to incorporate, the Ikebana style in with quilling. And it will be a really nice flower decoration that doesn't die,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I started looking into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But another example I came across that I find really cool and awesome is, and like how I said, it's everything is based on the interpretation of the artist and what kind of message they want to convey.
Mm-hmm.
And so one example that I found is really cool is that, and normally these flower arrangement is it's usually used as decoration in an alcove of like a traditional Japanese home. And an alcove is usually a room where you entertain guests.
Mm-hmm.
And against the wall, normally there's like a scroll of some sort of painting or script or something. And then in front of it and slightly to the left or right in the middle of it, there is an ikebana,
A flower arrangement.
a flower arrangement in the middle. And normally, like, when you enter a room, you have to pay tribute to this flower and to the people who created it, So,
Mm-hmm.
but then all of that aside, there's one example that I came across that I was like, well, they really put a lot of thought into this. It's you have a tall vase, and inside there are some sprigs of flowers in it, and it's one type of flower, but there are two different types of style of blooming. One is on one side of it is all the flowers are arranged where one side of it, all the flowers are already started to bloom,
Mm-hmm.
and the other side is that all the flowers are still buds.
Mm-hmm.
And normally in a setting, the host sits on the left side of the flower arrangement, and the guest sits on the right side. And so,
Interesting. Like, I would have thought that you'd have the guests look at the pretty flowers that are already blooming,
yeah. So you would think that you want the guests to look at the pretty flowers, but in this case, it was done like this on purpose because their idea of it is that the flowers that are already beginning to bloom will soon like shed the petals and die. However, the flowers that are still as bud, they will eventually still be, they're gonna be blooming in the future. And so this whole arrangement by having the guests face the buds it sort of symbolizes the wish that the hosts have for the guests, that in the future they're gonna flourish and bloom, and have a bright future.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the idea that they wanted to convey out of it.
No, it's definitely more thought than I put into it.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, and this is just one example, but like it's like I said, it's all up to the artist to arrange it however they like. And
Mm-hmm.
then there is a third style of ikebana, and it's called Jiyuuka.
Mm-hmm.
Jiyuuka, and it's pretty much freestyle, and it's taking
Jiyuu means free in Japanese.
yeah, Jiyuuka. So it's freestyle, and it's it takes in parts of Western cultures, like utilizing Western flowers, that kind of idea,
Mm-hmm.
to incorporate into this kind of flower arrangement. So it's more freedom. There's more freedom in it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to use the traditional tall but narrow vase. You can
Mm-hmm.
use like other types. You can use flat ones. You can use long ones, thin ones, big ones. Like, doesn't really matter.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the orientation of flowers in the end doesn't. It's not as strict as the other two styles.
Okay.
So
And are these like two schools of like all three of these schools of styles? Are they taught at all schools of flower arrangement, or does each school kind of take its own style and kind of go with that only? Like, would you learn all three of these at any typical?
you would learn all three more or less, like the basics of flower arrangement
Okay,
in schools. In schools, however, there are schools that have its own specific style,
and they kind of stick to that
and
only.
they stick to
Got
that,
it.
also incorporating in what has been taught through generations of what Ikebana is,
Got it.
and form its own style. So
I,
yeah.
I remember when I was like in Japan in Japanese high school, they did have a class like as an elective, a serious class for flower arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may think that this is just some side thing in Japan.
Yeah, it's like
not.
flower arrangement.
It's
That's silly.
It's
But
flower arrangement along with tea ceremony
yeah,
is like super important culturally to them.
yeah. I would say I don't think it's really that important to the new generations, but people that are older from the previous generation, they are still very involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly, more and more, like nowadays, more Western cultures are starting to get interested in this kind of flower arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like strictly in Japan anymore. I mean, a few years ago, we were in downtown Los Angeles near the Little Tokyo, and there's this little garden, right?
The Japanese garden.
Yeah, the Japanese garden, and we just randomly wandered into a room that was full of these flower arrangement that we had no idea was going on that day.
Yeah.
Like, it's still a very small like what is it? It's still
Small.
a very small I'm blanking out.
Like piece of culture?
Yeah, like it's still a very small thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say thing. I'm blanking out. Like, I'm clearly blanking out. Why?
Well, maybe we'll blank out less next episode.
But anyway, it's really cool. If you ever have a chance, like, check it out or learn it, I guess. And there are tons of stuff on the internet that you can find to learn.
So we'll put links in the description below. And hopefully you'll learn something as much as we did.
Stop mumbling.
Bye.
Bye.
Linh-chan, Dimi-chan. Dimi-chan, Linh-chan. Dimi-chan, Linh-chan, Dimi-chan, Linh-chan.